Welcome to the Jaybe show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. Good to see all of you here on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Today is November 12th, 2023. Of course, I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here. Now, just to let you guys know, every single Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, you can find me here on Revolutionary Blackout Network, as well as on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you guys can go ahead and keep a lookout for me. I also have my own channel called the Jaybe Font channel. If you guys have not already, you guys can go in there and give it a look if you like, peruse around. And if you guys would like to and feel so inclined, you guys can also subscribe there. But I also have my channel there, which is also linked in the description as well below and also in the chat. So if you guys want to give that a look-see. Also, just to let you guys know, if you guys have not already, you guys can go to our Substack at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com so that you guys can be alerted of whenever we upload clips or have live streams as well. Now, just as an aside, just to anybody who also may be watching, we also do a fundraiser for our graphics designer, Erin. She does great work. You guys can go to Venmo at Revolutionary Blackout or Cash App $Mutual Aid Forever. And you guys can do that as well. So thank you so very much in advance as well. All right. So I'm going to go to the chat to say my hellos, my salutations to everyone. And then we will get into the stream. So first, we have CBC Voter coming in, joining, saying, happy Sunday at Jaybe. Yes, and absolutely. I actually have my tea with me as well. So I am very wired right now. So good to see you. Janice Anderson coming in, saying, hi, all. Good to see you, Janice. Nice to have you. Robbie Burns says, hey, Jaybe. Good to see you, Robbie, and all who are joining on the Rockfin side, on the Rumble side, on the Twitch side, on the Crip side. Let me stop. Donald V says, hello, JB. Good to see you, Donald. All right. Now, what are we going to be talking about today? This is going to be an interesting subject to get into. There's going to be two topics that I'm doing. This is going to be a kind of a condensed version of the show today because I do have a hard stop. So I will be trying to get out here, within the hour or so. But just to let you guys know what we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be talking about drivers win in New York. We're going to be talking about that, what's going on with Uber and Lyft out of New York. And we're also going to be talking about blacklist fears. And why is there a Palestinian flag there? We're going to get into that. And that's actually going to be our first story because I want to take the drivers win in New York and I want to end on a happy note. But blacklist fears. You know, one of the things I noticed, especially since October 7th, even though none of this actually happened on October 7th, that's just a continuation of a resistance that has been happening for the last 7 years in Palestine. But one thing I noticed is that anybody who speaks out against the illegal occupation, against the apartheid, against the genocide that Israel is committing, a lot of people are now at risk when it comes to their employers. A lot of students are at risk when it comes to their education and job prospects at colleges and universities. We've been seeing this time and time again. You guys watch independent media on the regular, so you guys know about this. But it's also affecting Hollywood. Let's go to this story. This is a doozy. So this one is WGA for Peace. Opposition mounts among film and television workers to union support for Israeli genocide in Gaza. Let's go. Says, as the Writers Guild of America was attempting to organize the ratification of a sellout agreement at the beginning of October, the events in the Middle East cracked open a divide between the union bureaucracies, aligned with the warmongering Biden administration, and many rank-and-file writers, actors, and directors opposed to the Israeli genocide in Gaza, a crime that has ended the lives of 11,000 Palestinians to date, half of them children. The immediate and instinctive response to the WGA was uncritical support for U.S. imperialism. Quote, all of us in guilt leadership are horrified by the atrocities committed by Hamas on October 7th, end quote. This is by WGA West boss Meredith Stein, Vice President Michelle Mulroney, Treasurer Betsy Thomas, in a statement to members. Says, striking a similar tone, the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Union, currently concocting a sellout against its own members, asserted, quote, the October 7th attack was a fundamental violation of human rights and dignity. There's no justification for the murder and kidnapping of civilians. We mourn the loss of life and urge the safe return of those who are missing and held hostage. We stand united against hatred and violence and pray for peace, end quote. Just as a clarification into the facts surrounding what they said in this, breaking it down, says the October 7th attack was a fundamental violation of human rights and dignity. No, it wasn't. Actually, it was not a violation of international law, if we could say that much. Why do we say that? Because according to international law in the Geneva Conventions, you literally have the right to resist an occupying force that is forcing you under any type of conditions that, for instance, Israel is doing. So you have the right to resist by any means necessary. And yet, people see that as a violation of human rights, when in reality, to be honest with you, international law says otherwise, because they're literally being occupied. They're literally being forced into apartheid. They're literally being locked into a open air concentration camp and being bombed into oblivion. So that was an act of resistance, which a lot of people will not they will not form their mouth to say. But that's what it really is. Now, just to cover this a little bit, it says, there's no justification for the murder and kidnapping of civilians. Just to let you guys know, when it comes to the whole attacking civilians, and in fact, when you look at the deaths that are listed, even by Israel, most of the people who were killed by Hamas were actually military members. And anybody, for the most part, that was not part of the Israeli military, well, it's already came out thanks to Fiorella Isabel. She's a journalist. Fiorella Isabel brought out that they actually showed where in their gunships, in their helicopters, where they were literally gunning down and shooting missiles at targets that are Israeli. And so I could show you guys the video, but it will probably flag RBN and it will get taken down. So unfortunately, I can't show you. But it is definitely on Twitter. So if you guys look up Fiorella Isabel, you guys will see it. And so the whole attacking of civilians, they were targeting only military targets. So see how they try to skew things to make it seem like, what it's not. They said, we mourn the loss of life and urge a safe return for those who are missing and held hostage. By the way, Israel knows that there are Israeli hostages that are being held, and yet Israel still bombed the locations where their hostages were, that their own people were anyway, because they don't care about the hostages. Peace was never an option for them. It's always about the land. So the hostages that they were supposed to save, they themselves. They said, F them hostages, we want the land. So that's what happened. So just to clarify, because the people who are beholden to Zionists are not going to, they're not going to say this. They said, we stand united against hatred and violence and pray for peace. Apparently not any hatred or violence against the Palestinians. All right, so I digress. Let's move on. The Directors Guild of America took to the prize of historical ignorance, claiming that there was an equal sign between opposition to the fascistic policies of ethnic cleansing by Zionism and anti-Semitism. The DGA unequivocally condemns terrorism and joins the many voices in our community decrying the recent Hamas terrorist attacks in Israel and violence against innocent civilians. We stand against the growing spread of anti-Semitism here in the United States and abroad, and remain committed in our actions, words, and deeds to supporting the Jewish people. The DGA said, taking these positions places the guild firmly in the traditions of their union forebears, who in the Cold War period signed up for the anti-communist witch hunt and eagerly helped in the purge of left-wing figures and ideas in Hollywood. The present officials are every bit as cowardly and corrupt as their counterparts in the late 1940s and early 50s. Now, here's the point. We're basically going through it again. This is a McCarthyite era, but this one, instead of communism, now it's anybody who speaks out against Zionism. So it says more than 330 members of the three unions responded anonymously for fear of retaliation by condemning the leadership statements, explaining that they were expressing their concerns regarding the recent pressure campaigns by certain high-profile members of our guilds to issue statements in support of Israel amidst its ongoing siege in Gaza. While we fully appreciate the diversity of opinions within our guilds, we firmly believe that our guilds release such statements. That if our guilds release such statements, they must be rooted in deep commitment to justice and human rights for all. And so this is really just a neo-McCarthyite era, as the writer adequately puts, and that's what it is. Speaking out against genocide at all is now being considered, it's considered being anti-Semitic. It's being considered bigoted, to be against genocide. Isn't that weird? To be against genocide is now being considered bigoted by some people. It feels like we're in the Twilight Zone. Down is up and up is down. Because last time I checked, 11,000 people being massacred. Why is speaking out against that? Why is that a bad thing? But if you trench too far to being humane and being a humanitarian, it's curtains for you. All right, so it says a second letter called openly for an immediate ceasefire. It noted that as of this writing, our letter bears the initials of over 300 union members across WGA, DGA, and SAG-AFTRA, many of whom are Jewish and most of whom only heard about our letter through word of mouth. This is interesting. It says these principal statements were unacceptable to Hollywood elite and the union leadership that serves it. Deadline published a scurrilous pro-Zionist attack by writer Michael Seitzman, accusing the opposition of information management and attempting to obscure the character of the current campaign of mass murder being carried out by the Israeli Defense Forces and the Netanyahu government. The opposition responded with a thoughtful and measured manner to these slanders, debunking the narrative that October 7th was unprovoked and defining genocide as, quote, a crime committed with the intent to destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group in whole or in part, emphasis in original, a definition that applies aptly to Israel's current onslaught in Gaza. Now, just so that we're clear, if you're literally bombing children's hospitals where babies are being killed before they even get to blow out their first birthday candles, you're literally destroying generations before they can even walk or talk. That is genocide. If you are destroying children's hospitals where you have little children that are trying to recover and you're making it so that they die, you are committing genocide. When you wipe out 45 bloodlines, 45 complete bloodlines, mothers, fathers, grandmas, grandpas, cousins, sisters, brothers, aunties, uncles, all gone. When you've wiped out an entire family line, 45 family lines, that's genocide. And yet we can't speak about it. Yet a lot of writers can't speak about it for fear of being blacklisted, for fear of not being able to work again. So the group that is fearing being blacklisted is called WGA for Peace, and they agreed to comment anonymously. So here is a statement by them. They said there were many writers who recognized these pro-Israeli official union statements as fueling a one-sided narrative that would lead to escalating genocide in Palestine that we're witnessing today. It says, and they were specifically sensitive to the fact that if the WGA continued its narrative, it would further harm Muslim and Arab members of the union. Individually, these writers began speaking out and connecting with one another. Another quote from them says, it was soon confirmed that the WGA was in fact planning to release the statement despite our earlier efforts. As mostly lower to mid-level workers, we knew that if we were going to be successful, we would have to show collective force publicly. This led to our anonymous open letter. It was clear by then that these issues went beyond stopping a single statement by a single guild, and members of other guilds quickly joined these efforts. I want to harp on this point. Mostly lower to mid-level workers. Basically, these are lower and working class writers that don't make a lot of money. And they are literally trying to make a statement saying that we condemn the actions of Israel on Palestinians in Gaza. But they can't publicly put their name out there because if they do, they lose work. They will never work in that town again. They will be blacklisted, blackballed. They will be X out of Hollywood. Even still, even if they're mid to low level workers, mid to low level writers, they still will be blacklisted and blackballed, and they will never be able to do their job of being a writer ever again. And the thing is not because this type of condemnation of the state of Israel is anti-Semitic. Far from it. This condemnation of the state of Israel is an appeal to people's humanity to stop the genocide from happening. And the fact remains is that just like with a lot of the other industries in this country, it is ran by Zionists. And remember, not all Zionists are Jewish. And not all Jewish people are Zionists. There's a lot of Zionists that are atheist. There's a lot of Zionists that are Christian. There's a lot of Zionists that are of other religions. And some of them are at the heads of these corporate empires. And so because of that, any type of speaking out against Israel will land you into the poorhouse. It will land you to lose everything. Look at what's going on with a lot of the students that are speaking out in colleges. Let's continue. So I want to also stop here. It says specifically, Hollywood in particular is not designed to protect those who speak against the powerful in general. And that needs to change. Just recently, one of the industry's biggest agents was pushed out of a leadership position for resharing the simple statement, "You're currently learning who supports genocide." For example, it's undeniable that there's now a target on our backs, so we remain anonymous for the purpose of this particular campaign, even as many of us continue to organize around this issue alongside many Jewish siblings in our personal lives. Just sharing the statement, "You're currently learning who supports genocide." Like, what? You get removed out of a leadership position just for sharing a statement like that? What does the old saying? Look, I gotta take a sip of my tea for this one. What does the old saying go? A hit dog will what? Holla. Tells me they know it's genocide. They know it's genocide. But they are too cowardly to speak out against it. They have a fealty to Zionists. They have a loyalty. Why? Because it's about that bag. That's it. That's all it's about. It's about the bag. Secure the bag. So what if 10, 20, 30, 40,000 Palestinians die? I got to pay for my house. I got to pay for my car. I got to pay for my my individualistic. And they will use individualism every single time to say, well, if you don't do what we want you to do, you're going to be in the poorhouse. When in reality, if they all came together and collectively said, no, they can't fire all y'all. They can try. But it's really no discipline. So therefore, they falter, they fold. Like, for instance, one of the people who sided with Israel was Tyler Perry. Like, what? You don't even need to do this, dude. You literally have your own studio in Atlanta. You don't need Hollywood, bro. And yet, they're that powerful that they can bring a billionaire to his knees? Like, Tyler Perry doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to stand up against Zionism, but Angelina Jolie, who's not a billionaire, does. Mark Ruffalo, he's supporting Palestinians, and he's speaking out against the genocide. And yet Tyler Perry can't? What? That's wild, man. So that's what's going on in regards to the writers. And it's horrible, because anybody who speaks out, and this even goes to show for Hollywood, like, everybody's going like, why are all these Hollywood elite, why are they siding with Israel when it's clear that there's genocide going on against Palestinians? This is why. And it's not because Jews run Hollywood. No. They don't run anything, right? Zionists still. And remember, there are a lot of Zionists that are Christian, atheist, and otherwise. And so when you look at Hollywood, when you look at the U.S. government, when you look at the military-industrial complex, it all goes back to capitalism. That's where it all goes back to. Because any type of crack in the hole, it compromises the integrity. And there are cracks in the hole, but they don't want any more to form. And those cracks in the hole of the narrative is people like you and me talking about this issue, getting the actual historical context that has happened within the last 75 to 100 years, including the Balfour Declaration, right? And finding out the origin of Israel and finding out that it's a settler colonial project. And now everybody's going, well, wait, this is just colonialism. Why are we standing for this? And especially a lot of the kids are going to be all right. A lot of kids, especially on TikTok, young people, on TikTok are sharing and going, yeah, this is wrong. And so now, guess what? Boycotts are happening. Marches are happening. Information is being shared, and people are realizing that Zionists only have the power for which we give them. And if we believe the words that they say, then of course they're going to have power. But if we find out the truth and we spread the truth, then guess what? They lose their power like that. And they are. And this is why they're scared. Because the settler colonial project no longer has legitimacy in the imperial core. It didn't have legitimacy in a lot of parts of the world, But now that the imperial core, the West, particularly the United States, its citizens are saying, yeah, this state doesn't really have much legitimacy anymore. Hell, you have tons and tons of Jewish people also speaking out saying they don't have legitimacy. So with people who are facing being blacklisted, blackballed, fired, people who are being expelled, realize that even if you go through this, you are still on the right side of history. Now, this is why it takes a collective effort for us to be able to come out against this and help people who are speaking, you know, against oppression. And so if you know somebody that's going through it, but they're trying to speak out against oppression, give them some support. If they have a Cash App, if they have a Venmo, try to, slide them a couple dollars so that they can survive. Because ultimately, give it about 20 years. You're going to have a bunch of people going, oh, I was on the side of the Palestinians. Yeah, I was on the side. Next thing you know, internet's forever, baby. So we'll see. Oh, yeah, you definitely weren't. And a lot of us are actually going to remember who was for genocide and who wasn't. This is a very interesting time right now. I want you to pay attention. Pay attention to whenever you place the facts in front of people and they resist the facts about the genocide, keep that in the back of your mind. Keep that in the back of your mind. And remember, because just like what Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. So, did you guys like the stream? Go ahead and give this video a like. All right. And we are about to go to the chat, say my hellos, and then we'll move on to the good news story. All right. Fo says, really looks like October 7th is a largely scripted and it's at least partly untrue. It took them almost a month to provide a list of their dead. Yep. And there's a lot of military names, military ranks in there. Robbie Vern says, I'm not showing up as live on YouTube. Of course I'm not. It doesn't. Let me see. Oh, yes. Zaldivar says this situation really isn't a left-right issue. It's a human rights issue. Yep. Wadi says take into account that all three of the main Hollywood trade publications, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, and Deadline, are owned by Penske Media Corporation, who also owns Vibe, Billboard, and Rolling Stone. Ooh, talk about it, Wadi. Talk about it. James Starks, good to see you. Nice name. Says all power to people, all power to RBN. Love you, Jaybe. Free Palestine. Yes, thank you so very much. Yes, free Palestine. Janice says to learn the rules, learn who you cannot criticize. Joseph George says, got to go to a protest. I'll keep you running for that sweet airtime. Oh, man, thank you. And look, be safe at that protest. Wear a mask and not for the reasons that you think I'm telling you. And if you got some glasses, do that too. and make sure to wear some very comfortable sneakers with laces, right? Tie them tight and wear long sleeves and wear pants and be careful out there. All right. DW says Israel owns Hollywood. Zionists own Hollywood. Zionists. And I say Zionists on purpose because Zionism is not Judaism. Judaism is a religion. Zionism is a political ideology. So that's the difference. Just so that we're clear. I'll do all things with love. Said too bad because Perry has such a large platform. He could use it for a lot of good if he cared to. That's true. But he doesn't. But he's a billionaire, man. He is a billionaire. Lino says maybe blackmail also. Oh, definitely. Blackmail? Yeah. Yeah, ACAB includes ICE and Border Patrol says we definitely have to differentiate between Jews and Zionism. Not all Jews are Zionists. Absolutely. I will say that continuously. Not all Jews are Zionists and not all Zionists are Jewish. Look, I can name 4 Zionists that are not Jewish. Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Joe Biden, Donald Trump. Boom. Want me to keep going? I can go Hillary Clinton. That's also a Zionist that's not Jewish. Who else? We can go down that list. There's a lot of them. So just put that there. Golden Monarch says props to Claudia protesting at BlackRock HQ in New York City. Only one thing, does Claudia de la Cruz know about BlackRock's scheme involving Bitcoin? I have no idea about the scheme involving Bitcoin, but I hope that she does more actions against BlackRock, also Vanguard and State Street too. That'd be good to see. James says, I was a member of the Palestine Solidarity Committee in Chicago before the first Intifada and went to Palestine, Israel in 1989. Free Palestine. Wow. Reality Revolution says, must watch the great lecture about Palestine, Elam Pap, Crisis of Zionism. Thank you so very much for the super chat. All right, and let me check. All right. Let me go to the chat, and we are going to go to the rock bin. And then we'll move on to our good news story. Because I want to close out with that. All right. All my life, I pray for someone like you. All right. So, thank you for the tip on Rockin' Roger. It says, looks like a job for CBI for a state guarantee ratified as an amendment, not law. A state jobs guarantee ratified as an amendment, not law, giving you the right to a job ratified, and it would paycheck that stays permanently above the cost of living or inflation, where wage dynamically goes up when inflation and cost of living goes up. especially jobs in infrastructure, but also jobs that have them keeping the community clean of litter. He says, I got blocked for saying this because she didn't even have an argument to counter this. If you're going to if you're going back and forth with these pro-genociders and the moral argument doesn't work, pull this out of your back pocket. Trust me, they fall down. They have no counter to it. Ooh, Roger, what you talking about, bro? Let me see. Oh, let me read this. Hang on. Let me read this. This looks interesting. All right. So Roger says, who's making it up that you had the Nakba in 1948? And this is not Judaism. This is really about the oil and gas underneath Gaza. However, regardless of how you feel about it personally, we got enough problems here at home that our government is not investing in. Yet Congress is always quick to cut the check, and presidents are quick to sign it to prop up other people's military campaigns abroad. Yet when it comes to domestic investment, our check gets lost in the mail. The people here are suffering in terrible or no healthcare and infrastructure crisis, a homelessness crisis, a migrant crisis, which no one talks about. The reason why we have a migrant crisis is because we're practicing military campaigns in other countries to secure their resources for American corporations, destabilizing their governments through coup d'etat as well as economic sanctions to destroy their economy, to where the people flee here seeking asylum. Speak on it. He said, those who come here not for asylum but on work permits suppress wages because the bosses of American industry pay off our politicians not to do anything about it, because if they had to give those jobs to Americans, they know that Americans would withhold their labor unless they made those jobs better and benefits and pay. Maui is still waiting for help, right? Meanwhile, Flint, Jackson, Baltimore still have a water infrastructure crisis. New York City and Chicago still have a migrant crisis. We have a homelessness crisis happening all over the country because after the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis, when people had their homes foreclosed on, and then a COVID crisis in 2020, where it happened again, BlackRock and other private equity firms brought up all the housing, who now engage in real estate speculation, driving up the rent rates. You move away from New York and California to go to a cheap state, and they'll follow you there. San Francisco and LA are the epicenter of where this is happening. East Palestine, Ohio, still is not getting any real help. It's time that we start investing in America instead of trying to expand our empire so much that we're rotting from within. Mm, interesting. Brianna Morella says the land wasn't stolen. We can't make history justify eliminating Jews. Read the Bible sometime. Actually, it was, because the thing is that it was called Palestine before 1948. Hell, even in my Bible, it's called Palestine. Like, there's a map in the Bibles that I used to have, and even there, it still said Palestine. So I don't know what this lady's talking about, because she's doing some revisionist history bullshit. So thank you so very much for that, Roger. You got blocked for that. Wow. All right, so let's go to the good news story. So what's next? Drivers win in New York. Boy, oh boy. Look, I know that we've been talking about a lot of very somber issues, especially regarding what's going on in Israel, Palestine. Last week, I talked about what's going on in Haiti. On my channel, I've been talking about what's going on in Congo and Sudan as well. It's just a lot that's going on, right? Lord, I love making me look holy over here. There's a lot going on right now all over the world that really just breaks and tears your heart. And we have to keep these things in mind, and we have to keep talking about them, which is important. But it's also important to focus on the good news that's happening as well on the ground so that we can at least have some bright spots in our life. Okay. So I'm going to share this video really quick and then we can get into the details. And this story, shout out to Roger Meadows, because I'm going to be honest with you. Because he shared this story with me, this piqued my interest. I was like, okay, I'm talking about it because this is a good news. So let me share this video and then we can get into deeper details right after. So shout out to my homie.
Uber and Lyft have agreed to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for shortchanging drivers. Plus, Starbucks is reporting record sales as customers buy pricier specialty drinks. ABC News business reporter Alexis Christophers has more on that and your other business headlines. Alexis, what are you watching today?
Watching Uber and Lyft because this is a major settlement for rideshare drivers. In fact, the New York Attorney General is calling it the largest wage theft settlement for her office. Uber and Lyft agreeing to pay a combined $328 million for withholding money from drivers, $290 million from Uber, $38 million from Lyft. The state saying the companies wrongly deducted certain taxes and fees from drivers' payments between 2013 and 2017. Eligible drivers can now file a claim to receive back pay and mandatory sick leave. Uber and Lyft say they've been advocating for pay protections for drivers for years, Lyft adding it never violated any laws. More customers stopped by Starbucks last quarter.
$328 million. Yes, people, $328 million out of the hands of these big, greedy corporations. Yes, please. Let's talk about it. All right. Okay, so this is good news because, look, people are suffering, especially workers in this country. Not only are we seeing people abroad being massacred and genocided, but we're also suffering this country from the greed of the corporations. But at least we got a win. Let's go. So this says Uber and Lyft to agree to pay $328 million to drivers in New York wage settlement. So says the ride-sharing companies Uber and Lyft have agreed to pay $328 million to settle an investigation into withholding pay for more than 100,000 of its drivers, according to State Attorney General Letitia James. James said that settlement announced Thursday stems from her multi-year investigation into claims that the companies withhold pay from drivers and prevent them from receiving benefits under state labor laws. The settlement will provide back pay to drivers and create a earnings floor, minimum pay scale, paid sick leave, reporting of hiring and earning notices, and other changes to working conditions, James said. So, she said, for years, Uber and Lyft systematically cheated their drivers out of hundreds of millions of dollars in pay and benefits while they were working long hours in challenging conditions, especially during the pandemic. You got to remember, because then they had to change a lot of the policies during the pandemic as well. And so because of that, it was a lot rougher for them. And so we have to keep that in mind too. So let's continue. Says these drivers overwhelmingly come from immigrant communities and rely on these jobs to provide for their families. These settlements will ensure they finally get what they have rightfully earned and are owed under law. So it says under the settlement, Uber will pay $290 million and Lyft will pay $38 million. Says James, the Attorney General James said her office investigation found that from 2014 to 2017, Uber deducted sales taxes and other fees from payments made to drivers when those costs should have been paid by passengers. That practice reduced the cost to customers. Further, James said that the company misrepresented the fees to drivers in their pay statements. Lyft also reduced drivers' compensation from 2015 to 2017 through an administrative charge. Both companies failed to provide sick leave as required by state law. Drivers who are eligible for payments under the settlement will receive notices by mail, email, or text message. So that is great news. Now, there are details as to what these settlements actually entail. Just to let you guys know, I did the math. It said over 100,000 drivers, and it was $328 million. So you divide it, it comes out to about over $3,200 per driver. Now, some may get a little bit less, some may get a little bit more, depending on the circumstance and how they were treated within those years. But they can get a little chunk of change, $3,280. So that definitely helps, especially if they're, skimming all the money off the top, each time you drive a patron to where they need to go. So we're going to take a look at some of the details regarding these judgments. So we're starting off with Lyft. And thanks again to Roger for this. It says New York State Attorney General has secured fair labor practices for New York State Lyft drivers, including back payments from 2015 to 2017. It says, did you drive Lyft in New York State between October 11, 2015 and July 31st, 2017? Lyft may owe you money if you had deductions taken from New York sales tax and black car fund fees. Please see our free. Okay. Do you currently drive for Lyft in New York State? You will begin to receive new job benefits. Following its investigation, the Office of New York State Attorney General negotiated a settlement with Lyft that does the following. It creates a $38 million settlement fund. You may be eligible for payments if you drove for Lyft between October 11, 2015 and July 31st, 2017, and had deductions taken from New York sales tax and black car fund fees. The claims will be handled by Russ Consulting Incorporated. It provides you with new benefits for sick leave, payments, training, and job support if you currently drive for Lyft. These benefits are expected to begin no later than February 29, 2024. Remember, next year is a leap year. So there's 29 days in February. You will be able to access these benefits through the Lyft driver app. So the basics of the settlement goes through those. New benefits to current Lyft drivers. Sick leave if you drive for Lyft in New York State. You will receive guaranteed paid sick leave as follows. For each 30 hours you work, you earn 1 hour of sick pay. Your hours begin when the dispatcher notifies you of a ride and end when you complete the ride. You can earn up to 56 hours of sick time per year. This sick leave benefit begins no later than February of 2024. Your sick leave pay depends on whether you drive inside or outside the New York City metropolitan area. If your trip is covered by minimum driver pay rules of New York City Taxi and Limousine Commission, you will receive $17 per hour. This hourly rate increases to $17.25 on March 1st of 2024 and $17.51 on June 1st of 2024. This rate will increase annually for inflation starting March 1st, 2025. Now, I honestly think that it should be like significantly more than that, especially given that it's New York. But I know beggars can't be choosers, but at the same time, I'm just like $17.25. It should be more than that. $17 an hour should be like almost double that by now. But whatevs. If your trip is not covered by the TLC rules, you will receive $26 per hour. This hourly rate increases to $26.39 on March 1st, 2024, and $26.78 on June 1st, 2024. This rate will increase annually for inflation starting on March 1st, 2025. Minimum payments for non-New York City drivers. For drivers outside of New York City that are not subject to TLC rules, you will be paid a minimum hourly rate. Your hours began with the dispatcher notifies your ride. This hourly rate began on February 29th of next year at $26 an hour. Rate increased to $26.39 on March 1st of next year and $26.78 on June 1st of next year. And then, of course, adjusting for inflation in March of 2025. For each hour required training you will complete, you will receive higher of the following: $15 per hour, the lowest minimum wage. So I'll just do this last one. It says Lyft will provide the following information and documents: new hiring notice that explains the earnings, statements that show how much you earned during pay period, and notification how much a rider has paid for each ride. So this is awesome. So I'm going to share this in the chat, and then I'm going to go to the Uber one next. Because and by the way, if you guys can, try to tip well if you guys use Uber or Lyft in New York, because those drivers don't make a whole lot. Now, let me share the screen. Where you at? There you go. All right. So this is the Uber settlement. So following the investigation of New York State Attorney General, says it creates $290 million settlement fund. So if you drove for Uber between November 10th of 2014 and May 22 of 2017, May 22nd of 2017, you had deductions taken for New York sales tax and black card fund fees. So it provides you with new sick leave, payment, training, and job support. If you currently drive for Uber, these benefits are expected to begin no later than February 29th of next year. Right? So it's going to be very similar to it's going to be very similar to Lyft. It says for each 30 hours you work, you earn 1 hour of sick pay. So the maximum amount is 56 hours of sick time per year. And then it will begin on February 20, no later than February 29th of next year. And so it's pretty much the same as far as the if you're within New York City and you're part of the Taxi and Limousine Commission, so you'll receive $17 an hour, then increase to $17.25, and then $17.51, and then it'll adjust for inflation in March of 2025. And then if you're not covered by TLC or the Taxi and Limousine Commission in New York, you'll receive $26 an hour, and then it will increase to $26.39, and then on March, $26.78 in June, and then it will adjust for inflation in March of 2025. And then it's basically the same for the non-New York City drivers as with Lyft. Same thing with training, $15 an hour, or start at the lowest minimum wage. And then Uber will also provide the same things. Notice about earnings, statements about how much you earn for each pay period, and notification how much a rider has paid. So pretty much for the same thing. Let's see. By November 2024, Uber will provide chat support for drivers on its app in English, Spanish, French, Russian, Bengali, and Chinese. So that is the details, so that Uber drivers actually get better, more fair treatment in New York. And I hope something like this spreads throughout the rest of the country. Would Uber be more expensive? Would Lyft be more expensive? Yes. Yeah, it would be. Would that be a disadvantage to people like myself? Yes, it would. But at the same time, this is why we need to expand with mass public transportation. Because if we can do this, then we can expand mass public transportation. We can invest in things like high-speed rail. We can invest in trains, light rail, buses that are more efficient, that cut down on rideshare. And so that's how I feel. Like, we really need to invest more in just having a less individualistic type of mode of transportation and having more of a mass transit. But nevertheless, whenever the workers win, that is a win. Celebrate that win as well with your fellow workers. And look, I want to see them thrive, because there's too many of them that are suffering right now. When you see a worker win, be happy for that worker, because indirectly we're all going to win somehow. So, solidarity with you guys. So let's go to the Chizat. Did I just say Chizat? Yeah. 1998 called and it said it wants its lingo back. Oh, jeez Louise. Why in the hell do y'all watch me? Oh, it said Chizat. I dead ass just said that. Okay. Oh, why do y'all watch me? Okay. All right. Now, thank you for the tip on Rockin' Roger. He said this settlement came right after Uber deactivated my account. Oh, wow. I'm looking forward to getting my check next year. I will be appealing my deactivation. Also, Uber lobbied Governor Cuomo in 2017 to include the executive budget to break Uber into two. One to drive in New York City and the other to drive outside of New York City. There were no pay regulations. Therefore, the prices were wages. So what you pay when you're being picked up in New York City to Jones Beach, Nassau County, Long Island is $145 and the driver gets $100. That's fair. However, do you reverse pay $75 and the driver gets $30? Why, you ask? Because before this settlement, Uber New York City had pay regulations, but there were no regulations outside of New York City. So drivers got screwed. This is why the pay floor is higher outside of New York City. Uber monopolized outside of New York City. They were so low, it was hard for. Okay, I think he's finishing up. Hmm. Wow. I got you, Roger. If you come in and comment anymore, then let me know and I'll finish it up. Oh, that's all right. So Leroy says, I hate when work distracts me from joining when the live starts. Good to see you though. All right. You see, kill AHB is anti-war. Okay. Says, yeah, I stopped using Uber when I learned they were owned majority stake some Zionists. There's a lot of companies that are owned by Zionists, so it's like no matter where you go, actually. Workerbot says everyone should start a living at a living wage in a proper society. Yeah, we don't have a proper society. Do all things with love says I don't know. Cost of living can vary drastically from one plane to another. DJ Hyona says, "Come ride the train, come ride it, choo choo." I agree. Yeah, we need to do more in that way. Jimmy says, "Federal minimum wage should be based on cost of living in average market. States and municipalities with higher cost of living should consider higher minimum wage." And I'll finish with this one. James Stark says the capitalist class set the cost of living at whatever rates they think the people will, as a whole, accept. I think you meant accept what ACC, uh, EPT. All power to the people. Thank you so very much for that. Yep. I see. And let me finish up this chat from Roger. Man, I'm starving. I'll be eating soon, though. Finishing up, he said they were so low it was hard for competitors to come in and offer drivers more pay. Uber was damn near free outside of New York City. How do you compete against free? Now, this might allow for who I drive now, Rebel, which is a W-2 job that offers these already, but they only operate in New York City. This might give them the chance to expand. Oh, Rebel. Never heard of them. Are they a ride sharing service, Roger? I've never heard of them. Oh, and they're all electric vehicles. Interesting. Wow. Okay. Hmm. Alrighty. Roger says you got the scroll, bro. It's there. Oh yeah. I think you had to add it in because these things are a little bit slower. But thank you so very much, Roger. Appreciate it. Let me see. You didn't say anything after that, did you? Whoop. Get going. Yeah. So thank you very much. So yeah, I gotta get going because I gotta jump in the shower and I gotta get ready because I'm gonna go eat and I got some prior engagements. But yes, so share all the good news. Share the good news with your friends. You know, bring some light into their lives because there's a lot of us that are we're sad. Oh, and by the way, speaking of which, you know, because a lot of us were talking about, you know, some very depressing news that's been happening in Israel and Palestine. One of the things that I want to direct your attention to is if you guys are subscribed to my channel, you guys want to go into the playlist for Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Divine Price, right? And I did the reading recently of chapter 5, part 1. Go ahead and give that a listen. Here's why. Because a lot of times we will consume a lot of this traumatizing news over and over and over again, and we will not take our breaks to be able to recenter ourselves so that we can continue to fight later on. And so this was very good suggestion on how to take in the information you need, then step away temporarily and then come back, you know, when you need to. But also, you know, when it comes to the information that you learn, share what you can, but do not spend time battling it out and fighting people on Twitter, because people have access to Google just like you and I do. And some people just do not want to learn. Some people like to argue just for argument's sake. Or you'll have, you know, Zionists that will try to make it seem like Israel has been free and clear for the last 75 years, when in reality, they're the ones who have been committing the most atrocities. So make sure to also be able to take some time to center yourself and to not exhaust yourself emotionally and mentally as well. So make sure to do that. Now, just to let you guys know, if you guys have not, you guys can also like this stream. So thank you so very much. Also, if you guys have not already, you guys can join our mailing list at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. And if you guys would like to have any inquiries, you guys go to info@revblacknetwork.com. Serious inquiries only. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can go to our website at revolutionaryblackoutnetwork.com. And if you guys would like to, you guys can also donate to the Orlando Mutual Aid chapter of RBN. We are doing a fundraiser right now. What we're doing is raising money for warm clothes, grocery gift cards, and toiletries. And we're trying to get this done so that we can distribute these in December. So if you guys go to Cash App or $ Orlando RBN, then you guys can donate for that as well. If you do, then I will give shouts out on Twitter. And if you do not want to be shouted out, then just put anonymous in the notes so that I will respect your privacy in that as well. So thank you so very much to everybody who has donated in advance and anybody who will be donating in the near future as well. I can't wait till we be able to do this action. And one of the things that people had told me, especially when we were out in the streets, delivering toiletries last time, everybody kept asking for food. And so this is one of the things that we're going to be doing for the next action, which I am excited about. So outside of that, I got to get going. I actually went a little bit over time than even what I wanted to do, but I just want to thank you, all of you guys, for tuning in. If you guys go to my channel, I not only did I did the reading for Laziness Does Not Exist, but I also did an interview with Danny Haifong on my channel last night. And so if you guys would like to, you guys can go ahead and take a look at that. I will be making clips for that too as well. So We'll be getting to that. But thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in. Like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. And smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something funny. Watch something hilarious, because joy is revolutionary. Joy is also deeply important. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise. So yes, joy is revolutionary. And try to support the oppressed people so that they can have joy. All right? Mwah! Forehead kisses to every single one of y'all, because that's just the kind of guy I am. Solidarity with the workers and free Palestine.